Here, you fill in if there's anything I leave blank, you fill it in. So you said you had a controversial opinion. Culturally, socially, men and women are conditioned to be shaped in different ways. Women are more often to be victimized, men more often to be victimizers, abusers. And men are more likely to see their behavior as normal, and women are not, or not putting them at risk. Hold on, I wrote that down wrong. I mean, do you want to just articulate your position? Because it is your position, not mine. So.
Yeah, I know, but I'm just having trouble articulating myself right now. But in general, yeah, I think I fall under the opinion that we are kind of conditioned by a variety of forces throughout our life, and I think that in any society, there's things that are normalized, and we're blind to those things because this is the society that we're calibrated to, and you wouldn't really otherwise think any differently unless you can take a step back and try to look at them from a different perspective.
Is there any chance we can get you to move a little closer to your mic?
Sorry, is that better?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's way better.
Do you have anything that you would like to address specifically, or that where you would like me to expand on? Or
Okay, so I guess this is from the text. You said, I think. Hold on, I'm just reading it here. You said for men, I think they're shaped into ways that put them into the role of the abuser. And so I'm a little confused by that. You said, I think men are incentivized to view behaviors that are damaging and even cruel towards women as normal. I think this is partially accomplished through exploiting natural biological features of males specifically, but also humans generally. Men are conditioned to tie their self-worth and to learn to value themselves based on the quality and quantity of women and sex they're able to obtain. Combine this with hypersexualization of men by exploiting and corrupting their child brains through adult content exposure, typically at a young age. I'm not going to get into that, but it makes it easy and effortless for a lot of men to objectify and sexualize women without restraint.
do you disagree with that? You don't think that it's very common in our society for men to
I'm just
objectify?
reading what you're saying.
I'm asking if you disagree with it.
I disagree that men are groomed into being abusers.
I think abusers was a strong word, and I shouldn't have said that.
Well, you used it multiple times.
By abuse, I'm defining it as the misuse or improper treatment of women and sex.
Okay. Well, I mean, I can just continue reading, but you could just offer up what your actual position is.
So I think that men, a lot of, like, how our society is that it ties a man's self-worth to women in terms of...
You're very quiet, so just please very close to the mic.
Sorry. I think that a lot of men have their self-worth tied to sex and women and the quality and quantity that they can obtain. And I think that causes people to behave in irrational ways.
But it would seem to me, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, I do get kind of the strong vibe based on, and this is a vibe check, right? But I do get kind of a vibe based on what you've said earlier in the conversation that you might be a little bit more on the leftist progressive side. Would that be kind of accurate to say?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So I'm guessing that you believe in some kind of evolutionary model?
Yes.
Yeah, so I mean, if that's the case, then wouldn't status, which is related to reproduction, be a thing which would be very evolutionarily advantageous?
Yeah.
Well, then why wouldn't society conduct itself around that?
I think status is a normal thing to desire, but I do think that it is kind of exploited in our society.
What do you mean?
Where I think there's a lot of indicators when you're growing up that tell you as a man that if you don't have a woman in your life, or if you aren't able to sleep with a bunch of women, that you're not a high value man.
Yeah, but from an evolutionary standpoint, reproduction is the primary edict, right?
Yeah.
So then the man who reproduces the most would have the most status. That kind of makes the most sense, doesn't it?
Sure.
So, I mean, So then it seems that if reproduction is the primary edict, and having sex with lots of women, we could assume leads to lots of reproduction. Why wouldn't I still don't understand why society wouldn't kind of foment itself around that? Right?
I think that it makes sense that it would form itself around that, but I think it's also overemphasized in a way that.
Well, I mean, we have a birth rate crisis, right? Like, shouldn't we be having more babies, not less babies? So, I mean, wouldn't reproduction of the primary edict matter here? Like, wouldn't that matter a lot? But like all biological entities, their ultimate purpose is to reproduce, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if that's the case and man wants to reproduce a lot, which is what he was evolved to do, assigning status to that seems like it makes a lot of sense.
I think it makes sense, but I think it also can lead to people doing questionable things in the pursuit of that status.
Yeah, sure.
Everybody
But I mean,
wants it.
anything you would assign status to could be the case, right? Like anything, literally anything. Having 2 pennies in your pocket and that is somehow a status marker for humanity would still lead to all sorts of different outlier problems, right?
Sure.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't really understand why this is a big problem. It seems like it's evolutionarily advantageous.
I think the idea is reinforced that you don't have value unless you have beautiful women in your life or if you're unable to have sex with many women.
Yeah, right. But I mean, if you're not adhering to the primary edict, wouldn't you have less value? The point is to reproduce, right?
What if you're doing it and you're not reproducing?
Yeah, so I mean, that does bring up a whole different can of worms, which is what happens when you allow a society to fornicate without reproduction. It seems to lead to terrible outcomes. I completely agree with that. But the question still remains, I don't really understand how you would organize a society if reproduction is the goal without assigning status to those who reproduce. I don't really even know how you could do that.
I think in some ways that by tying, like overstressing or emphasizing this, like how we tie our self-worth or value ourselves based upon sex and women is kind of what contributes to the problems that we're having between men and women.
Okay.
Because if men are doing everything to try to access sex or like have sex with as many women as they can and using women and betraying women, then it's going to leave a lot of women in a position where they're
I mean,
not.
aren't they evolved to do just that? Aren't they evolved to spread their seed far and wide to as many women as possible? Isn't that hugely advantageous to
I
humanity?
think what's hugely advantageous is for 2 parents to raise their child together. That is the most likely.
Well, I mean, that's going to require reproduction and status. So like, let me give you an example of what I mean. Let's say a man has a family, has a wife, and he has 4 children.
Mm-hmm.
And that man acquires more status in society because he has a wife and 4 children. And we adhere to that and we say, oh man, that's some kind of status indicator. Do you think that men would be more likely or less likely to do that?
I think men would be more likely to pursue that.
Yeah, exactly. I agree. I think that men would be far more likely to pursue that. So then why wouldn't we, instead of the progressive mantra, push society towards that family unit and give it status? Like, that makes no sense to me.
I think right now we live in a society where people are valuing themselves on materialistic possession.
I totally agree with you on that.
And I think that
completely
includes
agree.
turning women into materialistic possession.
I completely agree with that too, but I think that that's
don't
not
think that's-
because of status. I would say it's because the opposite of that, right? So if you had higher status, if you didn't value materialism, wouldn't less people value it?
If you say that again?
So if you had a higher status in society by not valuing materialism, wouldn't less people value it?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, it seems like we should, instead of saying we should get away from, status, it seems like status isn't really the problem, but rather what we're valuing that gives a person this status in society.
Yeah, I think I would definitely agree with that.
Yeah,
I
so it
think that's
sounds
kind of
like
what
a
I'm trying to
nuclear
point-
family is the thing that has the most, or should have the most status, right?
Yeah, I would agree with that. But I
Yeah.
think the thing I'm trying to point out is that in our society, that's not what we value. We value material possession and money. And
Yeah, but that's because of feminism, right?
I would disagree.
Well, I don't understand. Are feminists the ones who are out there who value the nuclear family? Because last I checked, they
Some
were
of
doing
them
everything
do.
they can to dismantle it.
I don't know what all feminists believe.
Okay, well, are you a feminist?
I mean, I've never considered myself one, but I probably would if you sat me down and tried to
Yeah.
define
Okay.
it.
So feminism is a rejection of patriarchy. That's what it is at its core, right?
Sure, but I'm getting married and going to and having children. So
Yeah, I know,
mean,
but
it's
do you
those things
reject
can still be true.
patriarchy?
You can be feminist and still value a family unit, loyalty, monogamy, and raising children. And
Yeah, you can be a feminist and value all, but feminism is a rejection of patriarchal system. They reject patriarchals. Like for you and your husband, let's give an example. Do you want you and your husband to be equals?
yes,
Okay, well that's feminism. So that's not an embrace of the patriarchal system. You're not saying I want my husband to be the head of the household. I want to be equal with my husband, right?
but we live in a patriarchy.
I'm
So,
sorry,
like,
what?
you're saying that the problems we're having are due to feminism, and I don't understand how you're making that connection when we live in a patriarchy.
Do you think that the patriarchy is stronger or weaker than it was 100 years ago?
Probably just as strong.
Really?
Yeah.
So you think that women going into the workforce and things like this enabled the patriarchy?
I think if the patriarchy
You think 100 years ago we had as many female leaders, we had as many females who were in charge of different systems, who were CEOs, who were in charge of corporate, you really believe that?
No, but I mean, isn't the point of patriarchy that it's the people at the very top that are controlling everything, and the people at the very top are like predominantly men?
Well,
and
no,
it's always going to
it's
be that way?
scalable. Like it's scalable, right? So you can have the people at the very top, but it goes all the way down to the family unit, with the man being held in the charge of the family unit and not the woman. So the responsibility tends to fall on the man, right? That's
I
why
don't think
women
it
didn't have bank
necessarily
accounts,
has
they
to-
didn't have credit lines, things like that.
Hey, Andrew, I think our internet's back. Sorry, our internet crapped out there for a couple seconds. Andrew, you getting us? It's still kind of...
Yeah, I got you.
It looks like it's getting... Sorry, guys. I don't know what... No, don't. Oh, it's kind of crapping out. Andrew, you still got us?
I still got you.
I don't know. Sorry. Something's full minute.
Yeah, the quality went way down.
Yeah,
Uh-oh.
hold on. We're just... Give us just one sec here. While we're waiting on that, just going around the table, do you consider yourself a feminist?
No.
Starting with you.
I would say humanist.
Humanist, okay.
No.
Into the mics, guys. You can't wave. You got to
No.
speak.
No.
No.
No. No. Recovered.
Recovered feminist. Okay. Wow. We're still our internet's pretty spotty here. Is it going to recover? It keeps dropping and going back and forth. Oh, now it's doing really well. It's gone super fucking saiyan. Hold on. But you can still hear us, Andrew. It's peculiar.
We're gonna have to recall him, especially if I reload.
We're going to have to recall him?
Yeah, because otherwise I'm gonna have to place the audio.
Can you pull up the chat? Is the chat still getting us?
A couple people are saying we're back, and then it's lag.
The matriarchy is attacking us. It's the matrix. No, I don't know. We can't hear Andrew though.
Brian, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Yeah, I just had myself muted, that's all.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, I haven't lost you guys at all. And the spottiness of the internet it's greatly increased. So I think we're good now.
I think it looks green. I'm sorry, guys. I don't know. We lost a lot of viewers there, unfortunately, but hey, it is what it is. All right, we're back. Okay, so
Again, I might have to call Andrew because I'm probably gonna have to reload stream.
why? What's wrong with?
So when I reload stream, I don't want to explain it. You just have to trust us.
Okay, that's fine. Do you want to recall him now, and then I'll?
Yeah. Oh, no, it works. We're good. It's coming.
Okay, it's fine. Yeah, don't do it unless we have to. Well, let me just go back to, I guess, your original notes here. So, I mean, you said that you think men are kind of on the opposite side, where men are encouraged to be more sexually deviant or just abusive towards women, and you think it creates a weird dynamic.
Mm-hmm.
So you're saying men are are kind of encouraged to be more sexually deviant or just abusive towards women. Do you think men
I
or
would-
women are more sexually deviant?
Men or women?
Yeah,
I think men.
men.
Yeah.
You know the book 50 Shades of Grey?
Yeah.
Yeah, who bought those books? One of the best-selling books of all time?
Women.
Women.
Yeah.
The book where he's in a BDSM dynamic with her, and
I think my interpretation of that, I've never read
he's
the
a
book.
sadist.
I think my interpretation of that is perhaps women desiring a man whose sole attention is on her and not on various other women, and not
What about the
women in porn.
BDSM dynamic where he's a sadist?
I don't fucking know.
That's not part of it.
I don't know.
When you say deviant, sexually deviant, what do you mean? Just partners or preferences, or kind of unpack that a little bit for us?
I think I'm just getting at the tendency of men to objectify women and sexualize women.
Do you think women sexualize women? Women
Yes.
sexualize themselves?
Yeah.
So if there wasn't such a predominance of women showing themselves on the internet and all of this, wouldn't the sexual deviance of men
I think it's-
be also
sorry.
down because they're not being flooded with imagery and just vulgarity from women?
Yeah, I think it would be good if all women would stop doing porn, but I don't think that women are creating the demand for it. And I think
but
you
they're
could
creating the supply, right?
I want to give you an anecdote. So I'm not inclined to choke women. The amount of women who have requested that I choke them is a lot.
Mm-hmm.
It occurs to me that it seems like it's actually the women who are a bit more sexually deviant than men are.
I've heard from many women that they have gone on dates and had sex with a man for the first time, and the man puts his hand on her neck without even asking about it.
Okay.
I'm saying the opposite is true. I mean, that's been your experience. You've had women that have asked you to do that, but then there's also been plenty of men that have just gone and took it
Sure.
upon
Yeah,
themselves
it's probably
to do
both.
the same thing. Yeah.
It's probably both.
Okay. I'm not saying like the problems in society are more men's fault than women's fault. I'm saying I think that we are kind of put into this behavior where we're
Yeah, I think
at
I'm
odds.
kind of willing to engage with this. I think I understand where you're going here. That men, when you say that men sexualize women more than women sexualize men, you mean that men, when they categorize women, we're looking at things like that are aesthetically pleasing to us, right? So almost every woman we meet, maybe in the back of our head, we think, I do her, right? Or something like that. Something like more akin to that. Is that what you're saying?
Not necessarily. I mean, I think that's probably part of it. I think there are a lot of men that think that it's just completely normal to immediately start fantasizing about a woman that they find attractive, rather than just having.
Well,
the
I
impulse to
don't
let it
even know
go.
if they're fantasizing, but maybe they just have like a knee-jerk reaction, or that just pops into their head, right, or something.
Yeah, that's
like
fine,
this.
but I think a lot of people think it's okay to indulge in that.
Yeah, I would agree. But the thing is again, wouldn't this be evolutionarily advantageous for men to want to have sex with lots of women? And so they judge them based on their physical appearance, and the beauty standards that they have tend to coincide with how healthy they would be for offspring, right?
Sure, like I think I agree that these things have a natural basis, but I think that they are like extenuated or exacerbated by society and the
Yeah,
amount of
but
emphasis
the
that we put
question
on-
is, when you're talking about this exacerbation, it seems that the exacerbation has gone the opposite way of reproduction, which is very strange to me.
Mm-hmm.
So you would think that if men were out there being sexual deviants and just having sex with tons of women, there'd be a lot more kids, but there's not.
Yeah,
Yeah, well, my question is, why do you think that there isn't?
because women are on birth control,
Yeah, and who pushed birth control?
probably feminists.
From what era?
I don't know.
Oh,
I don't know
well,
anything
that would
about
be
the
the
history of
that would be the sexual revolution. So the thing that you're upset about, which is the promiscuity issue, that was brought to you by women. Brought to you by women, and the sexual revolution of, hey, all this chastity stuff, well, that's all bad. Women should be able to bang as many dudes as they want. This is a good thing. And that now they can because of birth control, right? That was part of the freeing mechanism. So just pointing that out.
I think male promiscuity was also more accepted back in the
Nick, can you
day as
close the
well,
door?
and just throughout history. It has.
No, it really wasn't. Do you want to know why? Why it wasn't?
Sure.
Because if you don't have birth control, what is the natural outcome of sexual intercourse?
Baby.
Yeah, babies. And so if men weren't taking care of their babies, there was also a natural outcome as well. There was an enforcement mechanism. The woman's family would do things like beat the shit out of him. They would have what were called shotgun weddings. There was all sorts of different things that would happen. But there was an enforcement mechanism which basically said if you make offspring, you're going to have to take care of the offspring. You're going to have to take care of the woman that you had the offspring with. Those were natural mechanisms in society.
I don't think like mistresses or brothels were entirely uncommon back then.
They're not entirely uncommon now.
It was very not uncommon now, but
Yeah,
I do-
very not uncommon now. But that's my point, right? Is that once you let the genie out of the bottle with a sexual revolution thing, and then you have the mechanism of birth control so that there's no effect of the sexual intercourse anymore, it's just pure pleasure and hedonism. Like, what the hell do you think is going to happen? Of course, this is exactly what's going to happen. What else could there be?
I don't
You can
think-
have all the fun with none of the responsibility. Like, what did you think would happen to society?
I don't think the attitudes that men are more able to step out on their wives or able to sleep around is something that's new.
Yeah, but so what? Like, I mean, monogamy is brought to you by Christianity, right? Monogamy is brought to you by religion. It's a religious enforcement mechanism, so there's no more left behind men. That
I don't
used to
think
be a
it's
big
necessarily a
problem.
religious enforcement mechanism. I think a lot of monogamy is also just evolutionarily advantageous.
Well, hypergamy would be
Well,
more
okay, but then
evolutionary
religion
Sorry.
would be evolutionarily advantageous. That's the point.
Yeah,
And
it
yes,
is. I
it's
mean,
brought to you
it
by
has
religion,
been.
and religion would be evolutionarily advantageous. So if we're going to deduce this, we can figure this out, right? We can say, okay, so we evolved to be religious because religious people go for monogamy. That's why you would evolve that way, right?
I mean, not all religions are like that, though.
Well, that's what I
Yeah,
said, it was
but
brought to
hang
by
on. The most
Christianity.
predominant ones, the most predominant religions on planet Earth, in this case Christianity, enforces monogamy.
Is it?
Yes.
I thought Islam was the most predominant.
Well, you're wrong. The number one is Christianity. Number one.
Oh, didn't know that.
Here, let's bring it back to, you said that you think men are encouraged to be abusive towards women. What do you mean by abusive?
I think that was a poor choice of words. I mean, I already defined it. It's the improper use and mistreatment of women.
Okay. So they're not encouraged to be abusive towards women?
I think
Or are
they're
they?
encouraged to use and lie and manipulate and do what they can to get sex from women.
Are women encouraged to do the same in order to extract resources?
Yeah, I would say so.
Okay, well, I guess as long as you don't have...
Do you think a lot of men can do what you're describing?
Yeah.
You think like majority of men have the capacity to be like
To lie?
sexual deviants and be able to sleep with many women?
I don't know the exact statistics, but I think the vast majority of men watch pornography.
But that doesn't mean that they're being abusive towards women.
No, not necessarily, but I think they're engaging in an activity that requires you to objectify women, and it requires you to overlook how women end up in that position of being porn stars in the first place.
But I guess what I'm wondering is, I think even dating apps kind of show that most men don't have the capacity to meet up with a bunch of women. So women are able to choose, and they're choosing this only like a select few
Yeah,
percentage-wise.
I would say probably the majority of the damage is probably done by a minority of men. Not
Or
like a,
wouldn't a majority of the damage be done by majority women? Because they're the ones who actually have the capacity to be more promiscuous, to be more manipulative because they have more opportunity?
no, I don't see how.
Why? If they have more sexual selection, how would they not be more prone to being more manipulative because they have more capacity
I think
to?
when you have less selection, that is when you have to go and resort to things like manipulation and lying and coercion and pushing boundaries.
But if you're not even that top tier person, like what women would consider attractive, you don't even have the opportunity to do that, unless you're talking about something that's forceful, which that's statistics
Yeah,
don't bear
I don't-
out
I'm
to
not-
be.
I'm not-
Majority
sorry.
of men are like that.
I'm not saying that majority of men are like that. I think that men are more likely to be put into that position. And I'm trying to explain away the perceptions, like why do women have this perception of men as being users or abusers, or like why do women have this fear of men? And I'm not saying it's the responsibility of all men, but I'm saying that women have had this, they're drawing from their own personal experiences.
You don't think they're drawing from maybe cultural pressure for, like when Andrew was saying feminism kind of brought this? Feminism already positions a woman's worldview that they are oppressed, therefore there has to be an oppressor, right?
I think that could definitely add to it, where it's like it feels a lot worse when you go through something, and or maybe you make a mistake on your own, and you are looking for an out, a way to remove the blame from yourself. Yeah, I think you can.
So you could
can do
conflate that
But I
maybe
think-
your personal anecdotal experience is reflective of things that are happening more generally.
Say that again?
You're saying that something that anecdotally might happen to you, you're now extrapolating and saying that this could happen more generally?
I don't think that's what I.
Well, that's what I'm trying to figure out, because feminism is telling you you're oppressed, you're a woman. So who would be oppressing you if you're a woman? Other women or men?
I think the feminist argument would be.
Zesimora donated $200. Words have meaning, unless it contradicts my position, then it means two things at once where it is convenient for me. LOL. Whatever. Andrew's mental endurance is insane. Thanks for all you do.
Thank you, Zezi Mora. Appreciate it. If I can just move things along here a little bit, but so you said that there's a culture for men by men about how they should treat women. I don't want to linger on this because it gets into like the essay stuff, but
Sure.
You did write it down, so I'll touch on it briefly, but we'll only give it 5-10 minutes. And so you said so this is what you said. So I think a lot of men might find themselves in situations where they're alone with a woman who maybe is drunk, maybe not, whatever, and they aren't aware of the ways that she's been conditioned to be more passive, but also this biological prerogative for self-defense where there's a natural inherent dynamic between men and women. You said it's women, I think, from a physiological perspective. You can't deny that a man is stronger, and you're going to sense that if you're alone in a room with a man, you're going to be more agreeable, and then also probably more likely conditioned societally to be more agreeable, to find yourself to not press your boundaries as much as you should, because you assume that men are going to react violently if you do. You assume that from a biological perspective, but also you assume that because you're conditioned to believe that, and then men are probably not even thinking about that. I'm just a little confused. Are you saying that women who end up alone in a room with a man are, in all instances, are SA'd? I'm confused.
No, that's not what I'm saying.
Well, you're saying like, just by virtue of being in that situation, that what? You wrote it. These are your words,
I
not
think
mine.
what I'm trying to convey is that when you are when you're alone in a room with somebody, and there's a like inherent power dynamic.
What would the power dynamic be?
That he's a man and you're a woman.
So just simply by virtue of being a man, okay, that's the power dynamic.
Don't you think
Okay.
that there's like
No, go ahead.
something
Just finish
evolutionary to
your point. Go ahead.
that?
No, finish your argument. Go ahead.
I was saying that if you are a woman alone in a room with a man, there's an inherent power dynamic, and that I think there would be some sort of evolutionary adaptation where you would maybe be more submissive.
So you're saying if a
Acting
woman
self-preservation.
finds herself alone, assuming she's attracted to the man and has agreed to be in the room alone with him, right? How did they get there?
It doesn't have to be in that situation. I mean,
So they're
attracted
just,
to him.
what's the scenario that you're envisioning then?
okay, fine, we'll go with yours.
Well, I'm just like I don't know, I'm just a little confused here. So you're saying that like if a woman has consents to sex, it's not actually consent? Is that what you're arguing? I'm just confused.
I guess in a way that is kind of what I was getting at. But I think that there can be situations where there's coercion and there's boundary pushing and there's soft no's that aren't really taken seriously, and like maybe you're being playful, but you're also saying no, you're not trying to upset the person that you're with.
Okay. I don't know.
Isn't coercion using force and threats? Definitionally?
I guess in this instance, it's like implied threat due to the power dynamic.
So just his presence is the
Implication
threat?
of threat.
What's
But
that?
isn't
So
that
just his
just based on
presence is the threat?
feeling?
Sorry, say
Like
that?
isn't that just based on feeling, not necessarily the fact of the matter?
Yeah, but don't you think that there could be an evolutionary adaptation for that, where it's better to be agreeable in a situation like that rather than to be combative?
No.
If you are actually in a threatening situation.
No. You have fight or flight, right?
And you don't think that it might be better for a woman to?
She may not
I
even
mean,
have
there could
control
be
of it.
there
That's what the
could
fight
be
or flight
some
is.
circumstances, but when you're talking about coercion in this sense, that wouldn't make any sense, right? There's no implication even of threat. You're just talking about a feeling that you have. Wouldn't that be more societally informed than anything? Like, for instance, if women were running around telling you that 50% of men are predatory, wouldn't that have an impact on whether or not you had a feeling that a man was being coercive towards you because society's telling you that men are a bunch of predators? 50%, for instance?
Yeah, I think that would definitely influence how you feel in that moment.
Yeah, I think it would. You know what I mean? So it's like, I think that might be, if we're using the way that you're kind of viewing coercion, that seems like it's far more coercive, than the alternative of a man just, I don't know what, giving you social cues for sex. I don't know. Is that what we're talking about here? Just kind of social cues?
Yes.
Yeah, so I mean, if that's what we're talking, then it seems like the social implication here is that women who believe that and spread around that 50% of men are hyperpredatory would be far more of an influence on this socially than any kind of fight or flight response, unless, because I mean that's influencing the social cue, right?
You don't think that a power dynamic can also influence that, though? Just knowing that someone's stronger than you?
Well, I mean, men
think
are
there's a
around men who are
physiological
stronger than them all the
response?
time.
So women.
They don't seem to, and they don't seem to kind of move into the idea that, as far as coercion goes, that any type of social interaction is going to be overtly threatening to them, even though they're around people who are stronger than them constantly. So, like, I don't know why women necessarily get this pass. There seems to be when we're talking about social cues here, that the influence of women, often like with this idea that men are predatory, when they're really not. I mean, they're just really not. Statistically, that's not based in fact at all. It's true that there's more men who are predators in the way that you're talking about it than women, but who cares? It's not very many of them, right? It's still not this vast amount. So it seems like that is an influencer more than anything else.
Wait, so are you arguing that women?
Hang on. Do you mind if she just answers that real quick, or answers to that?
I don't have anything to say to that.
You think you kind of agree that that's true?
She doesn't have anything to say to it. So do you agree, or?
No.
Okay.
Okay.
What do you disagree with?
Can you ask me your question?
You want me to ask you a
Yes.
question?
Yes, what you were going to say.
You don't want to answer anything? No.
Killer of Cereal donated $200. It's not the cocaine bears we have to worry about anymore. It's the cocaine gators in Florida now. Ladies, would you rather run into a man or a 10-foot alligator while walking through the marsh?
What would you? Would you rather run into a man or a 10-foot alligator while walking through the marsh? Anybody here? Hands up for man. Hands up for 10-foot alligator. Okay, there's your answer. I'm confused. Okay, because you said that women are conditioned to be more passive, and you're lining that into what I think is you're saying that women are getting essayed because they're more passive and men are physically stronger. That creates a power dynamic, and so by virtue of men being physically stronger, even if a woman consents, simply by virtue of the man being stronger, she was pressured into having sex with the man because the man is physically stronger, ergo, even if she consents to sex, the man was physically stronger, she was pressured into it, women are conditioned to be passive. Essentially, if a man in any situation is physically stronger than the woman, that's SA? I'm just not understanding your argument, really.
I don't necessarily consider SA. I think what I'm trying to get is that we are shaped in certain ways, and when we have these interactions with each other, I'm trying to explain why women have a bad impression of men. And I'm not trying to put all of the blame on the men. I'm trying to explain that part of it comes down to how we view ourselves.
Right, but
in
you're
certain
talking,
situations.
what you're talking about here is like if you're alone in a room with a guy, and my understanding is if sex occurs,
Mm-hmm.
you're saying that, well, if sex occurs and the conditions are that women are more passive, that's what you're saying, and that the man's stronger, there's a power imbalance,
Mm-hmm.
therefore the man has essentially essayed the woman. Is that your position?
No.
So what are you trying to point towards
I think I'm
with
trying to say that it could-
with this talk of women have been conditioned to be more passive? What are you alluding to?
I think it gave a list of examples and ways that men can be kind of shaped into these behaviors that are damaging towards women. And I don't want to focus too much on the idea of coercion or overlooking soft nose and things like that, because I think more of the damage comes from things like lying and manipulating women into sex and using them for sex.
What would be an
Pretending-
example of lying or manipulating a woman into sex? Like if a man who worked at McDonald's said he was a lawyer, would that be?
No, like giving the
I mean,
impression.
it would, but okay.
Sure, yeah, sure. Giving the impression that you're interested in having a relationship with somebody.
Can't
and-
women do that too?
Yeah, but I think it happens at a much higher frequency from the male
Mm.
side because there's more incentive to. If you tie your self-worth to how many women you have sex with, and you tie your self-worth to...
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Do you think?
So, I mean, that
What-
sounds like there's a cure, though. Like, immediately, it stands out to me that there's a cure. Now I understand what you're saying, at least. I understand your argument. You're saying, and I'll just kind of steel man this to make sure I get it right. You're saying, listen, if society is saying that men's self-worth is much higher based on, how many women they're having sex with, then they have an incentive to have sex with more women, thus lie to more women about wanting to have a long-term relationship in order to have sex with them, right?
Yeah, I would say that's part of
Okay,
it.
well then, wouldn't the argument for this be female chastity? Wouldn't that literally cure that problem? Wouldn't female chastity literally cure that problem if women waited till they were married to have sex? Wouldn't that literally cure the problem?
I don't think necessarily, because part of the problem is the way that men view women, and that also needs
Yeah,
to be
they
cured,
do.
too.
Okay, but if they view them as thing I want to have sex with, if they're just objectifying them, right? Thing I want to have sex with, and woman goes, well, you can't have sex till we're married. How's that not the cure?
Maybe they just want to get married so that they can have sex with the person.
Yeah, but I mean, but if that is the case, then wouldn't that be vastly more preferable? Because you're saying they're lying to women about the wanting to have a long-term relationship with them. I mean, marriage is certainly a long-term commitment, right? I can't think of a more long-term commitment than that.
Sure. I don't think it's necessarily preferable, though, because I think a lot of women are feeling like they are undervalued and like they are not being appreciated for who they are as a person and only being appreciated for what they have to offer sexually.
Well, it seems that if a man's willing to marry them, they seem to be appreciated for basically everything. But if you're getting, what do they say, right? It's the old saying, if you're getting the milk for free, right? If you're getting the milk for free, then why buy the cow, right? So the question becomes, if that is your argument, and it does, and I did steel man it, you said it was, male promiscuity, they have incentive to lie so they can have access to sex. Okay, that's a high status, right? Got it. Well, if that is the status, then it sounds like female chastity would essentially cure this issue. I mean, I don't see how it wouldn't.
I don't think it does, because I think part of the problem is that women want to be valued for more than that.
Yeah, but they would be being valued for more than that. They would be getting married to men, right? Those men would definitely value them, or they wouldn't be marrying them, right?
But if they're still just marrying them because they want that status of or that access to a woman, I don't think.
Well, I'm sorry. Let's just assume for a second that like only 5% of them marry completely on the condition that that's the only way they can have sexual access. Wouldn't that still be completely superior in every way to modernity that you're talking about right now?
I don't think that a 5%. I don't think that would be inaccurate.
Let's say it's 50%. Wouldn't that still be superior to
No.
the modernity that you're? How would it not?
Sorry, in your example or scenario, is it like a society where we're not allowed to get divorced? Or
It's just
like,
modern society. Modern society where you're saying there's a plague of men who will lie to women in order to get sexual access. It's like, okay, but if they lie to the woman and say, hey, I love you, but I'm willing to marry you and take care of you for the rest of your life in order to get access to that sex, how is that still not superior to the idea that they could just hump you and dump you? I don't get that.
Like, I suppose that's you could say that's superior, but how do we get there? And why do you think it's just
Yeah,
from
but that's not
women?
really the question of how we get there. We first have to establish that that has to be superior to what we now have.
I'm not committed to an answer on that.
You're not committed to an answer. So you think it would be inferior? That if men were marrying women for access to the sex, that would be an inferior system to what we have now? Or they just lie to them and then bang them and there's no consequences whatsoever?
I don't see why it would be superior. If
Well, because they would be in this, because your issue is they're lying, right, so that they can have sex and there's no social repercussions, and they're lying about wanting a long-term relationship. But if they marry you for the sex, they're definitely committing to a long-term relationship.
okay, yeah, I see your point with that.
Yeah.
Okay, sure. So then I guess
So then like female chastity, which should really be our number one thing we're looking at here, right?
I think I still don't necessarily agree.
Oh, okay.
Because
Not
I still
necessarily?
think part of the problem is still the fact that women are feeling undervalued. And
Yeah,
not
I
wanting
get
to be
that they
valued
may
for
still,
sex.
but
And so
you would agree it would be vastly superior, right?
I don't necessarily agree, because you marry somebody who just values you for sex, and then if that's the only thing and you're still not feeling valued
Well, what
for
do you
a person.
think men value women for? Do you think what do you think that they're valuing them for? Like their credit cards? What do you think they value women? They value women because they want to have sex with them. They want them to have their children. That's the main value that women have to men. Like, what do you think the big value is women are bringing to the table absent sex? I actually want to know the answer to that question.
This is such a pointless
Love and
conversation.
friendship.
Love and friendship?
Yeah.
You can get friendship from men. Why do you need friendship from women?
It's friendship with all these extra benefits, sharing your whole life with somebody, having a child with them, merging worldviews.
Sex.
Huh?
Sex.
Children,
So
you said
I mean,
having children.
so instead of when you're saying friend, the distinction between you being a friend with a guy and you having a wife is your wife is your friend who you also have sex with. It sounds like the value here still seems to be the sex. Because you can have all those other conditionals with other people, but the sex seems to be the thing you are putting a value emphasis on.
I disagree, and I don't think sex should be the primary value, because sex is kind of replaceable. I think the value that you get in a relationship is that merging of worldviews.
What do you bring to the table?
What do I bring to the table?
Yeah, in a relationship.
I think I bring a unique perspective, and I can help you live a more fulfilling life.
You think men date you because you bring them a unique perspective?
Yeah, I think I have given my partner a unique perspective, and I think I've helped him to start living a more fulfilling life, and I've led him to being a better person.
Doesn't every human being on planet Earth have a unique perspective?
No.
No, they're not. No.
No,
How
I
could
think-
two human beings not have unless you're
Okay.
saying all human beings are not unique?
Sure, I would say a lot of people have. You could say down to there's some differences between people, but I think there's a lot of overlap and shared worldviews.
So you want to be valued. So you're one of those. I want to be valued for more than just my sexuality, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think
What do you
most
want to be
people
valued
do.
for?
What
do you want to be valued for?
Yeah, I guess that's a good question that I don't have. I want to be valued for who I am as a person.
Okay, but why wouldn't you be valued for who you are as a person, and the highest value that the man has with you is still the sex? I don't get that. I still value you as a person. I think you're great. I think you're wonderful, this and that. But the not having sex thing, that's a deal breaker. That seems reasonable.
I think I would want to be. I don't think I would want sex to be at the top of that list.
Why?
What I'm valued for. Would you want like a woman to value you most for the money that
Would
you
I
provide?
want my woman to value having sex with me more than anything? Oh, it's terrible. Oh, no, what would I do? What would I ever do if a woman only valued as her top priority having sex with me? Oh, it's terrible. How would I ever get through the day? She didn't love my big brain and big mind, and she only valued sex as her highest priority with, I don't know how I could live.
Yes.
I got a question. Let's say there's a woman who's 30 who's a virgin, and then there's a woman who's she just turned 18, but she's slept with 100 men. If a man has a preference for dating the 30-year-old virgin over dating the, hold on, wait, let me think here.
Yeah, the 30 prefer.
Yeah,
to
he
date a
prefers
30-year-old.
dating the 30-year-old virgin over the, now, granted, she is legally an adult, so I wouldn't consider either to be P-word, but
yes.
which one do you think, like if a man was inclined to date one or the other, which one would be more P-word? The 30-year-old virgin or the 18-year-old with 100
How old
bodies?
is the man?
40.
I mean, yeah, it's legal to date an 18-year-old, but I still don't think a man that's 40 years old should be dating an 18-year-old.
Mm-hmm. But
So
it
I think,
seemed
yeah,
like
I
this
think he should go
virgin-
for the 30-year-old virgin then.
But
Why not?
look at all the-
What?
But look at all
Why-
the
why?
sexual experience that she's had. Because you said it comes down,
Sexual
the virgin would suck in bed. It's giving P-word.
Mm-hmm.
But she's a 30-year-old virgin, whereas the 18-year-old has had 100 sexual partners.
But your question is what? That who should he?
Well,
What would
which
be
one is
more-
more P-wordy?
I mean, both.
They're both.
They're both of age, but I do think a 40-year-old man should he be dating an 18-year-old? I mean, to each its own, but I
Yeah.
just don't think.
Yeah, they should. What's wrong with it?
I mean, I don't. Would you do? Do you have a daughter or
Yeah.
Andrew has daughters, yeah.
you have daughters? So you.
Yeah, I have 4 daughters, yeah.
You would be okay with your 18-year-old daughter dating a 40-year-old man?
Well, what would me being okay with it? Let's just assume I'm not okay with my daughter dating anybody because I'm a good dad, right? And that's all good fathers everywhere hate the fact that their daughters date anybody at any time for any reason. But the thing is I've been thinking about this because I hear women say this a lot, right? And I only hear it exclusively from women. That it's gross or in some way icky if a 40-year-old man dates an 18-year-old woman. Are you saying that an 18-year-old woman is too stupid to date a 40-year-old man?
I don't think you are thinking clearly at 18.
Okay, well then why can you vote?
Shit, I don't know.
Good
So
question.
then, do you think that 18-year-old women shouldn't be able to vote?
I think.
Hang on, remember the question, answer to the actual question. Are you saying 18-year-old women are smart enough to vote but too stupid to handle their personal affairs when it comes to a relationship? I just want to make sure I get this clear.
I think voting, I can't really say the two correlate because getting involved with a 40-year-old man, dating a man that has much more experience and could use that to his advantage in many ways
But-
is different.
So
Just
that
putting it-
40-year-old man, if he has a lot more experience, he's way smarter in this type of thing, clearly he should be able to vote. Why should the 18-year-old who's too stupid to date the 40-year-old man be able to vote? That's what I don't understand.
Stupid doesn't equal inexperienced. You could
Well,
just
then
be
what's the problem
young
with them
and
having a
inexperienced
relationship?
and not stupid. Dealing with
Yeah,
a man
okay,
is way
sure.
different.
So if that's true, then what would be the problem with them dating?
Well, I want to go back to the question that I have for you, and I want to go back to the question I have for you. You said you have 4 daughters.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think it would be a good idea for your 18-year-old daughter to date a 40-year-old man? Yes or
I
no?
would advise my 18-year-old daughter not to date any man.
No,
that can't be a. I'm saying if your 18-year-old
How
daughter
can
said,
how can it not be? Do you know any would include all 40-year-old men?
I think.
So any would include all 20-year-old men, 30-year-old men, 40-year-old men, 50-year-old men, and include all of them, not just some of them. But in this case, we're talking about a 40-year-old man and an 18-year-old woman, and I'm just curious, if you think an 18-year-old woman is so fucking stupid that she can't handle her personal affairs when it comes to dating, why do we let them vote?
She never called them stupid.
Yeah, I never called them stupid, and
That's you.
I'm
I
just
lost
how
audio
you're
on this end, I don't-
just how you made a comparison
Nick,
to
did
the.
you do
I lost
something?
I
audio.
had to adjust that. I'm gonna recall him back.
Wait, what did you change? We're getting it. We got it, Andrew. Here, I don't know if you can understand sign language. What happened, Nick?
It's just a normal audio thing that happened again.
Okay.
If we refresh
That's fine. So going around the table, I'm just going to get everybody's take on this. Do you object to age gap relationships? Let's say the age, let's put it at 30 and 20.
Or
Do you object to that age gap?
a 20-year-old and a 30-year-old?
30-year-old man, 20-year-old woman. Yeah,
Yeah, that's fine.
you're fine with that.
Wait,
Okay.
wait, we were talking about 18 and 40.
Yeah,
So
that
can we
was a
stick
way-
to 18 and 40?
We could.
I
we
think
could
that
do
would be
that.
more fair
It is
because-
bigger,
Yeah, let's.
but I think a 30-20
No, but let's
is a
stick
bit
to-
more likely to happen.
But let's stick to what we were talking about because
I'm
that's
sure. I'm fine with
so
that.
18
Okay.
and 40.
18-year-old and
Yeah,
40.
yeah. Well, if you don't mind, I'd like to get back to this before the audio cut out. Can you explain why it is, again, that you want 18-year-old girls to be able to vote if they're too dumb to manage their personal affairs when it comes to their
And like
relationship?
I said, she never called them stupid or dumb. That was your own words.
Well, then what would your objection be to it then?
I think that men that are 40 years old
Uh-huh.
could manipulate you, could do a lot of things, and
Well, then this
a
must
relationship.
assume that the 18-year-olds must be stupid then.
No.
I'm sorry,
You're
are
just
you
not
usually
that
manipulated by people who are smarter than you?
You're just not going
Or
to
dumber
be
than you.
as experienced when you're 18. You're not going to be as experienced as you would be at 40 years old.
Yeah,
men
so
get
if you're
more
inexperienced,
nefarious as they get
if
older?
you're, so then this goes to my point. Hang on, let us finish our exchange here real quick, if you don't mind. This goes back to my argument then. If you're too inexperienced in the world to even manage your own personal affairs when it comes to a relationship, why would you be experienced enough to vote on the issues that would affect me and the nation? Do you want to explain that to me?
I don't talk politics, so
We're not talking politics. We're talking about voting.
Okay, so I just think just how your argument against virginity, preferring a virgin as preferring someone with blue or brown eyes, I just don't think your argument is as strong as you think it is. I don't really see the comparison.
Oh, well, what
because-
a fantastic counter argument. I don't think your argument's very good. It's not an
because
argument.
When you're
That's just saying
involved,
something.
when you're dealing with a man day in and day out, that is a lot different than sending in a vote.
Yeah,
Is that not? And
okay,
you still
so
won't
I realize that everything on Earth that we could possibly imagine that we make an analogy to are going to be different, no matter what, right? So I can say, for instance, oh, this tastes like chicken, but it's not actually a chicken. The reason that we're making the analogy that it tastes like chicken is so that you have some reference in your mind to what the thing tastes like. We're not actually saying it's the thing itself. So knowing that, what I'm asking you here is if a man who is 40 wants to date a woman who's 18, and the woman who's 18 goes to you and says, I love him, I'm going to marry him because I love him, are you saying that that shouldn't be allowed?
I mean, people could do whatever they want. Do I think it's appropriate? No.
Yeah, what's
It would be-
inappropriate about it?
The age gap is
Yeah, what's inappropriate about it? What's actually problematic about it? She loves him, he loves her.
There's a big power struggle there.
Well, hang on, there's a power struggle in every relationship, regardless
And
of
more
age.
so with a 40 and an 18-year-old than
Prove
someone
it.
that's...
No, that's not true for every relationship, one. There's no way you could ever demonstrate that that's true. You could say maybe the likelihood of it increases, but so what? The likelihood would also increase if he was a 21-year-old millionaire and she was a 21-year-old who worked at Starbucks. There would be a massive power imbalance. Would you say then that they shouldn't date?
Well, you're saying if they were to get married, right, would you...
Mm-hmm.
Are you married?
Mm-hmm.
You are? Can you tell me the age you got married?
I'd actually have to calculate it, but
around time, like were you in your 20s, 30s?
yeah, I was in my 20s. Yeah, late 20s.
Late 20s. Okay. So do you think that your relationship or your marriage with your wife would have survived if you got together when you were 18?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, good for
I
you.
mean,
But
let us assume for a second that I'm wrong, and it wouldn't have.
Okay.
So what? What would that have to do with anything?
I just don't think you are gonna make the best relationship decisions
Yeah.
at 18 years old. That's
And
my answer.
and
yeah,
it's
no,
not-
hang on, I get it, I understand, but this is kind of become circular, right? So let's move back for a second. You're saying that the reason for this is because there's a power dynamic problem. She loves him, he loves hers not enough because there's a power issue. Isn't that what your objection is?
I just think that if you had I feel like our conversation, I could get a better, I could give you something better if you could give me what you would really, truly, honestly think about your daughter at 18 dating a 40-year-old.
Why would you need my position to know your position?
Because I think you could
Wait.
understand
Why do you
where
need
I'm
my
coming.
position to know what you think about an issue?
I think because you would be able to understand where I'm coming from if you were to actually be
So
honest
I'll give you my
about-
position again.
Okay.
I don't want my daughter to date a man her age or older than her or younger than her.
That's just not going to happen, though.
Yeah, okay, great. But now you know my position. So back to your position here. I'm just
Didn't even
curious.
answer it.
Is it the power dynamic issue? Is that what the problem is?
All
I
things
see what you're
equal,
saying,
you have
Brooklyn.
to choose. Sorry.
Totally.
No, you go
I-
ahead.
All right.
Yeah.
I can say all things equal, you have to choose between the 20-year-old and the 40-year-old for your daughter. All things equal.
Well, all things couldn't be equal. It's an impossible and illogical hypothetical in a vacuum. So if you were to just say on age alone by itself with no other contributing factors, I would probably choose for the 20-year-old.
Okay.
But so what? What does that have to do with anything?
I think
Now let's add in a single variable.
Okay.
The 20-year-old is a broke, destitute idiot, and the 40-year-old is not. Then I might choose differently, right? Because it's not in a vacuum. So understanding that that is true, I can still explain to you that I would probably have the preference for this to youth, sure, but so what? That doesn't mean I see any immoral arrangement with a 40-year-old dating an 18-year-old. That's what I don't understand and need demonstrated. That's what I want to hear. The actual problem with it is what?
I think how you see it, Brooklyn, is kind of how I see it, where it's just like, what does an 18 and a 40-year-old have in common at all?
Mm-hmm.
You're not in the same walk of life at all. He's
Well,
been
I
doing
can
it for
tell
20
you.
more
I can
years
tell you what
than
I think. What I think.
Hold on.
I can tell you what I think. I can tell you what the distinction is.
Priscilla
He
did
really
that.
wants to have sex with her a lot, all the time, and she wants his money. That's what it is, right? That's generally speaking what I think this arrangement would be. Is that she would go for him because she thinks he's sophisticated and has resources, and he's with her because he really wants to fuck her.
And if
That's
he
what I
doesn't
think.
have the
Essentially, it would
resources?
be.
And if he doesn't have the resources and she's just with a 40-year-old man, then what?
Because she loves him. You think that I'm going to tell my daughter that she can't marry somebody that she loves and who loves her back?
Well, you can't.
That's really weird.
You can't really tell her anything. At the end of the day, she's going to make her own
That's right.
decisions.
I really can't tell her anything at the
Exactly.
end of the day. So that's why we're just moving into why this is actually in some way some kind of problem.
Well, can you?
Why
go
is
back
this
to what you were gonna
actually
say?
a problem?
For me, I think that we're thinking the same in the same way of just, I don't think I have anything involved. My mom's 40. I don't have really anything in common with my mom other than she's my mom, because we're just at different walks of life. And do I think it's the worst thing on a planet? No, because they're both legal. But
Wait, hold
would
on.
I
On
do
this
it?
whole,
No,
wait.
at all.
On this whole commonality
'Cause I
thing,
do think
though,
it's
really, on
inappropriate.
this commonality thing, though, really quick, for anybody here, do you think like it's high on the totem pole that like the major thing you're looking for when it comes to a partner is things in common?
Yes.
Like if you don't like, I've never seen like a really attractive girl and been like, she doesn't like the same music as me. Guess I'm not gonna fuck her.
she's never going to play Dungeons and Dragons with me. Damn it.
I think
But
it's a
you know
whole
what?
bunch of
I don't.
stuff
You know what?
connected.
You're super hot, and I thought that you were gorgeous, and the woman of my dreams till I found out you don't play D&D. That's a deal breaker.
I think people connect on having things in common.
Exactly.
And
What does-
I don't
wait, let me
know
ask
how
you a
you
question.
necessarily connect at 18 with a 40-year-old. So I do agree
Yeah,
with Brooklyn
but
in that sense.
I mean, whoa, hang on. I'm just really curious, right? Why wouldn't there be tons of overlap and connection? So, for instance, name a connection you would have with a 21-year-old that you couldn't have with a 40-year-old. I'd like to know a single one.
Well, most 40-year-olds would feel like have a wife and kids.
Okay, yeah, but
So,
this
I mean,
one
that's
doesn't.
not necessarily
Hang on,
fair. I
hang
do
on,
know what you're
hang
saying.
on.
No, but
This
answer
one
his
doesn't
question.
have
Yeah.
a wife and kids. So, can you name a single connection you can have with a 21-year-old that you can't have with a 40-year-old? Go ahead. The floor is open. Name one.
A 20-year high school reunion.
A what?
That's about it. Or like a high school reunion. I haven't had one yet. I'm 21.
That's a connection.
I'm just trying to,
But do you
kinda,
think?
I guess so.
You
It
think
could
that would be a basis for disqualifying? Do you think
Yeah,
that would be a basis
can you give
for
me a
disqualifying?
single emotional or interest connection that you can have
I
with a
would hope
21-year-old man you can't have
that
with a
in 20
40-year-old,
years,
honestly?
I have a lot more experience
You're
and
not
knowledge than I
answering-
do
you're not answering
at
his
20 years
question.
old right now.
I would say
But you're not
being
answering
in the
his
same
question.
age or stage of life.
Exactly. That's what I just
Pretty
said.
big
Yeah.
difference.
Yeah,
complaining
okay,
about
so
college
no, then I'll
classes.
just ask you the same question.
Exactly.
Perhaps you'll answer
Going
it.
out
Can
and
you
partying.
name a single emotional connection or interest connection that you can have with a 21-year-old man you can't have with a 40-year-old man? I'd actually like to know the answer to
I think
the
you
question.
would form an emotional connection by being in the same stage of life. You're experiencing adulthood for the first time.
And you can also form emotional connections to the opposite of that. You can form emotional connections with people who are outside of your experiences. You've heard perhaps opposites attract. You've heard perhaps that people enjoy traits in other people that they themselves don't have. There's
I don't
all
think you're
sorts of these
necessarily
types of
gonna- sorry.
emotional. Yeah, so I'm just asking specifically then, what is that thing, that emotional connection you're talking about? What specifically there could you have with a 21-year-old you couldn't have with a 40-year-old?
Neither one of your guys' brain is fully developed when you're 18 and 21. When you're 40, you're a full-grown man.
Go ahead.
Your brain is
Oh,
developed. You've already
No, your
seen-
brain is fully developed at 18. I don't know what you're talking
It's
about.
not until
Your
25.
I
brain,
think 25.
It's
no?
not.
25.
actually,
25, yeah.
what you've
Your
done
frontal
is you've
lobe
taken
finishes.
one study, which is talking about the prefrontal cortex, and you've misread it,
It's
like
not one
most people
study.
do. Oh, really? How many studies is it?
Couldn't tell you. Sorry, I didn't write it down.
Yeah, I know. And can you name the study?
No, I can't name
Wait,
it.
so
No,
wait.
you can't name it. So the thing is like you're talking about the prefrontal cortex, and the thing is the prefrontal cortex begins to degrade after the age 26. People forget that part. It degrades. So if it degrades, then wouldn't that mean if you're a 40-year-old man that you have a degraded prefrontal cortex, whereas a 25-year-old woman would have a prefrontal cortex in her prime? So wouldn't that make you equal?
Don't things start to degrade after they've reached like their prime?
Right. So if it reaches its prime and it begins to degrade, but let's take a look at this attribute, right? So you can have a fully developed prefrontal cortex even before the age of 26. You can have that. It's not even a problem to have, and you can have such minute differences. What if it only works at 0.5% better, or a quarter of 0.5%? That's why you can't extrapolate from studies like this. You can't take this and extrapolate that we can only consider you an adult at 26 because everybody's mind develops differently. So the question becomes this. And by the way, if that's the case, wouldn't only 26-year-old women be able to vote? Wouldn't only 26-year-old women be able to buy cars? Shouldn't only 26-year-old women be able to go out and enter into contracts with other people?
I don't think anyone's saying that it should be illegal to date someone that's 40 years old.
Right. Okay, great. Then let's get back to this then. What emotional connection can you only have with a person in your age bracket you couldn't have in an age bracket of a person who's 20 years older than you?
I think I already stated my answer to that.
Wait,
Being
can I ask
Which
you a
was
question?
what?
To this idea of commonality, couldn't you also argue, though, that there might be too much commonality between two 20-year-olds because they're both maybe emotionally immature, but if you had somebody younger girl, they might be a little bit more able to be like, okay, she's acting like this, but he has more emotional maturity because he has that experience that you guys are talking about, so he would be able to be in a way more nurturing or at least more aware of how to deal with her?
I think when you're with somebody that's your age, you're getting to learn and figure it out together.
I have a
You make the
question.
mistakes that you can learn.
So I have a question for you. Do you think that all older women are super mature and always conduct themselves properly in relationships,
No.
and all younger women are just these like chaotic, can't conduct themselves in a relationship? Is that your position?
No.
Because I can tell you from experience, I've had a lot of experience dating women in their 30s and 40s, and they're just as, if not more,
Neurotic.
troublesome than women in their 20s. From my own personal experience, my own anecdotal experience. In fact, women we've had on the show who tend to be in their 30s and 40s, post-show, create more issues for us by fucking trying to do reputation destruction. I'm dealing with it right now. 40-year-old women are the ones that are like trying to do reputation destruction, doing malicious shit, than like some 20-year-old chick or whatever, she got owned in an argument.
I mean, I think, are these single women for the most part?
How's that relevant?
Bitterness.
So okay, so they get more bitter as time goes on, so they would be less good matches for a partnership because they're bitter.
Yeah, I would think so in general, but I
Okay,
think
so
you can
then-
say the
so
same
they're
thing about
bitter.
men, and that's from my experience
Right, but
with
you're
older men that go
arguing-
for younger women. They are also embittered by life, and they're jaded, and they're looking for something that's easier. for
Okay,
them
sure.
to
Let's assume
manage.
that's
Exactly.
true. Are they still selecting for what would be best for them?
Yeah, but I think it's kind of selfish to do something for your own self-interest at somebody else's disadvantage.
Well, that's really weird
expensive.
because if that's the case, then you've kind of destroyed your own argument. Because
Nick,
if
you
you're
gotta
saying
collect the phones,
that you
man.
sh-
I feel like it was good.
yeah, if you're saying you shouldn't do this thing X based out of
Maddie,
your
why don't you do
own
it?
self-interest, in this particular case, wouldn't you be telling any of these women to operate against their own self-interest?
By telling them not to date an older man?
Yeah, if they wanted to date an older man, and this older man had resources, could take care of them, and they loved him, I don't understand how it's not in their best interest to marry him.
I mean, if all those things are true and they're actually like a good, genuine guy, sure, then that would be in their best interest. But I
Then
think
why is it a problem?
because I think you're making up a scenario that's not representative of reality.
Exactly.
What is what's representative of reality?
That a lot of times when older men go for younger women, it is because they're looking for someone easier that they can
And
manipulate.
so why are the younger women going for them?
Because they are naive and they don't have real world experience. They're going through a transitionary stage in their life where they are leaving their home and they don't know how to make sense of the world.
So they have no accountability.
You could argue that.
Okay, so since they have no accountability, why can they vote?
I mean, that's another discussion.
No, I
I'm
think
open
it's
to
a
hearing
relevant
that.
discussion because we're either going to treat 18-year-olds as adults who can make their own decisions or we're not.
No, because an 18-year-old could be very book smart, but that doesn't ensure that she knows how to deal with romantic relationships. Romantic relationships and being book smart is different. That's why they say there's book smart and street smart. You can't just put it all in one box.
But why should we assume that she can manage any relationship in any age bracket?
She could be smart enough in the books, got all straight A's, and knows exactly what she
Yeah,
feels
no,
could
I
be
get
the
it.
best
She
next
understands
candidate.
geography and history, and she's great when it comes to politics. But this would still beg the question of asking this singular question of, if she can't manage a relationship, why should she get in any relationship?
You're bringing up why should she be able to vote if she can't be in a relationship? But I
Yeah,
just
what I'm
answered
saying is that if the
because you're
issue
bringing
is
up voting, but
experience-
voting has nothing to do
Yeah.
with dealing with
If
the man
the issue
romantically.
is experience and knowledge, and she can't manage her own affairs because she can't be held accountable because she's too young, then why are we treating her like an adult? That's the question.
I don't think there's an answer there. I do want to get back really quick to the commonality thing. So you guys were saying, well, what does a 20-year-old, 30-year-old, or 20, 40-year-old, whatever it is, they don't have anything in common. Can you just articulate to me what men and women around the same age have in common? Or I'll even grant you, what do men and women have in common?
I think it's all individually.
Yeah, but
for-
what is something that you would have in common with somebody that would be, you have something so in common that you're going to choose to be with them on that basis alone?
Maybe the way they view things in life.
Like values?
Yeah, like I feel like
Okay,
I
so
think-
couldn't an 18-year-old have the same values as a 28-year-old?
They could, but they could have different experiences leading up to that.
Okay.
graduating college, experiencing like the bars, anything like that. Yeah, I got like your license.
Okay, let me ask you a
as an
question. So
18-year-old 2 years ago.
let's say you're a 30-year-old man, and you don't drink, you don't party, you never did. Maybe you went to a bar once, and you want a partner who doesn't drink, doesn't party, doesn't go out to bars and clubs. Do you have more in common with a 20-year-old who's never gone out to bars and never drank, or with a 30-year-old who goes to raves, goes to music festivals, parties every weekend, and is basically a borderline alcoholic? Who would be a better partner for who? Who has more in common with who?
Are we doing the 18 and 40 now, or 20
We
and
can-
30? It doesn't.
It
matter.
doesn't really
I got
matter.
you.
I'm
Okay,
just
I
giving
see.
you, it's still an age gap.
No, I see what you're saying. I do agree. Like I said, I don't think it's wrong. It's obviously not illegal. I just
No, but answer the question though. So
Okay.
which one do you have has more in common?
obviously the two that have the most in common.
Oh, so there is a
which
commonality.
The ones that don't drink, yeah.
But I think the issue is more so how big the age gap is. It's like the older you get, I feel like it's more acceptable than, I mean, an 18-year-old is, even though you're legally an adult, could we all agree that we were kids at 18? Right?
Yeah, I felt like.
Could you say that?
I could
Well,
feel like
okay.
I was an
Then
adult.
No.
Looking back,
Nope,
you're like a kid, basically.
I can't agree to that. No, I can't agree that that I was a kid at 18. No,
Childlike.
a kid would
yeah.
allude to somebody who is not an adult. No, I would say I was an adult at 18, or say all of you were adults at 18. I think you're trying to infantilize women because you want to make men out to be predatory, but you can't make arguments for how they're being predatory.
I'll
I
grant
think
you that women
regardless
are
if the
more-
woman
are
is
less
40.
mature, yeah.
So
but-
what this is typified loading of language, and you see this from feminist circles all the time. Wouldn't you consider yourself a kid at 18? No. And no, I wouldn't consider any of you to be kids at 18. I consider you to be adults at 18. I'm not going to infantilize you so that you can say that men who want to date younger women are predatory. I would need an actual argument for why they were predatory. And so far, I haven't heard one.
Yeah, I think what he's trying to get at is why do men all of a sudden become like more nefarious with age? Like I've heard girls talk about guys and awful things that guys will do, and they're usually like college age guys. So to that point, like wouldn't a man who's more mature, more experienced, wouldn't he actually possibly be less nefarious than a 21-year-old, 20-year-old?
point.
That
I
would
don't-
be nice if that were the truth, but a lot of
isn't
the times
that,
it's not.
I think that's what it's going to, is like your world, like the worldview that you think age, as a man is older, he becomes like more tactic and or like calculating, and he's like, oh, here's this 18-year-old. Maybe he just got a divorce because women initiate most divorces. He's now divorced, and he wants to maybe still have kids, still have a different life, so he's going to have a younger woman, right? Would that be somebody who's like being calculated in a nefarious way, or someone who's just saying, yeah, I want to still have a family, I want my wife to be younger? That wouldn't be like calculated in a bad way. That would be calculating in a way that's what he wants, right?
You could find a young woman that's still fertile and not go for an 18-year-old. 20
Sure.
versus 30 is more acceptable. 18
Yeah, even
versus 40.
well, I think we were
is
just using the
a
extreme
little
end
crazy.
of the spectrum, like a 40-year-old and an 18-year-old. But I think the point that
Well,
they're going
maybe
to
we
is-
can tie it together a different way. So are you guys on from my perspective, the right side of the table in the green? Are you okay with sex work?
yes,
Okay, so what if a 40-year-old woman has sex with an 18-year-old man who pays her? Is that okay?
I feel the same way.
It's not okay for them to do?
I feel like either way, it could be predatory.
Yeah, but is it okay?
Ben
if
George
that's-
donated $200. So if the 40-year-old has an 18-year-old daughter and is hip to her age's culture, having been extensively involved in her life and her friends, is he unqualified to date younger based on commonality?
Having been extensively involved in your life and friends.
He's just saying if a 40-year-old man has tons in common with an 18-year-old, why would it? He's just making the same claim. Like, why would that be a problem if they have a bunch of in common and they love each other?
Back
But
to Andrew's thing. He was asking a 40-year-old S worker with
Uh-huh.
18-year-old male who's paying for it.
Paying for it.
Paying for it.
Oh,
Yeah,
he's
they're paying for it.
Yeah,
Well,
he's paying
that
for it.
changes things. I thought.
Yeah,
it
yeah.
was
Is
like
that
the same-
okay?
If he's paying for it,
Why? Well, I don't understand. What's the difference? So what would be the difference then if a 40-year-old just wanted to have sex for free?
I would just personally, if I had an 18-year-old son and he was messing with a 40-year-old woman, I don't see that going over. well.
Unless he was paying for it?
I don't know if this is gonna get anywhere. Are we on?
No,
the
I
whole
think it's
time?
getting somewhere. It's getting to a great place. So what if he's paying for it? Is it okay then? So if he goes, hey, Mom, I just plowed a hooker. She's 40. I gave her some money. That's okay in your worldview? Just not if she does it for free?
well, dating versus just having a one-night stand basically are two different scenarios.
Oh, so as long as 40-year-old men are just fucking 18-year-old women, it's fine.
I think it's more P word.
Hang on. I just want to make sure. Let me just talk to them for a second. I just want to make sure I get this right. As long as 40-year-old men are just fucking 18-year-old women, it's fine. Just
Well-
not having a relationship
Well,
with them.
the 18-year-old woman, she does get to choose what she does with her body. I wouldn't
Except who to date with it.
I wouldn't recommend that. But if she wants to make her money, because maybe she has rent to pay, whatever the case may be, she got to make means meet. That's different than just dating a man.
Wait. So let me get this right. If the roles are reversed, a 40-year-old man only wants to hump 18-year-old women, why would that be a problem? If you're saying that a woman can hump 18-year-old men as long as the 18-year-old pays her for it.
I feel the same no matter what.
You feel the same way? You just said it was perfectly
If the gender's
acceptable.
reversed in the same situation, I feel the same way. I feel like women can be predators too.
Yeah. So then you think that sex workers should not be allowed to have sex with 18-year-olds? They can't do scenes with them. They can't do any of those types of things, right? That would be bad, wouldn't it?
I wouldn't personally agree to it, but because they're of age to make their own decisions, then they can choose to do that. But I wouldn't say I would recommend that or that's personally right, but they make their own decisions if they're paying for it, and that's their source of income.
Okay, so what you're saying is that inside the porn industry, you would say it's bad for a 40-year-old to do an adult scene with an 18-year-old. That's like worse than if it was just a 30-year-old doing a scene with a 40-year-old?
Yes, it's worse.
It's worse.
Yeah.
Okay. And it's worse because the 18-year-old can't make these decisions?
No, I just said they're old enough to make their own decisions.
Okay. But by this logic, wouldn't you say then that 18-year-olds shouldn't be involved in sex work at all?
I wouldn't recommend someone so young getting into sex work, but I also can understand that they're of age to make their own decisions. So everyone has different circumstances in life, you know. You could have a full ride scholarship to school. Other women don't get that privilege. Not saying
Okay.
that all sex workers have to do sex work, but I'm in no position to judge young women who are just trying to
that's
get
fine.
by.
So then we can just agree then that there's nothing actually immoral with an 18-year-old dating a 40-year-old, right?
Well, you're bringing up sex work. Dating is different than sex work. 'Cause
Why would it be okay for them to have a physical relationship with each other as long as there was money involved? That's really weird.
Because that is a job and one is dating.
Yeah, well, I don't understand. Why would you paying somehow change the dynamic of this power dynamic, which is what you're against, right? It's still a massive power dynamic issue, isn't it?
I think we all agree that it's not immoral.
not
It just could be inappropriate, which is an opinion more than it is.
Well,
a
what does
fact.
inappropriate mean?
I think
what
it's
does
just
that
an
mean?
opinion. I think different things are inappropriate probably than Brooklyn and Lily do.
Like what?
I mean, do you want me to say things I think are inappropriate?
It gives them the
Yeah.
ick. It gives them the ick.
Yeah, I
don't
just
think
want to
it's
know.
that.
I just want to hear that it gives you the ick. There's
I
nothing
think-
immoral about it. It's just icky. You just think it's icky.
I just think that different things are inappropriate than other things that I'm sure other people find inappropriate. Things I might find inappropriate, other people might not.
Okay.
So I think
Just
it's
for the sake of
opinion-based.
time, I do have to move things on a little bit. I didn't really get an answer, though. I'll come back to this quick. We were talking about commonality. I still haven't really heard what men and women have in common.
What?
I'm opening this up to
what
the
the men
panel.
have.
Well, you
what
were
men-
making the. I
oh.
think you were making, or maybe
Well,
it
men
was
and
you.
women in general, or men and women as in 18 and 40-year-olds?
What would be something that a man and a woman could have in common that would be sufficient enough for them to want to date simply by virtue of having a commonality?
Maybe their
Religion.
religion. Yeah, religion.
Okay, but what, like, within the context of age? So we have something in common because we're about the same age. So a 70-year-old and a 20-year-old could have religion in common.
Well,
Oh,
I think there's a higher chance of maybe both people not having kids at a younger age or
sure.
a marriage, and it's some people it'd be very important to them as it is to me. I wouldn't be with a man that
Right, let's
has a
assume
child
that-
because I want it to be our both first
Let's assume
experience.
this hypothetical 30-year-old doesn't have kids and neither does the 20-year-old.
It really is so situational.
Yeah. I mean,
Well,
really
but
is so
but
situational.
you said, like, okay, if it has to do with age, what do they have? Because you brought up they graduated. Well, they recently graduated at the same time. Has anybody ever dated somebody? Oh, we graduated at the same time. Let's fuck. Has that ever happened?
probably.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
Really?
How many
Because
people there
that's
That's situational,
not because
that
I
happened
find
with
her
somebody else.
physically attractive.
I think it's all of it. It's you find
Wow, she
someone
graduated.
more attractive the more you have in common with them.
But
Yeah.
okay,
Why don't you think life
Really?
stage is a big thing to have in common? Like
you
experiencing
can have it
adulthood
in
for the
common.
first time.
Right, but if,
And trying to
if,
figure
if
out
that was
yourself
the
outside of your
hold on,
home.
if that was the attraction trigger, then all high school students would be attracted to all high school students, which clearly isn't the case, right? So it's clear to me that commonality on its own
Don't they-
is not
Sorry.
is not sufficient enough to create attraction between two people.
But I don't think any one thing is.
I think the stage in life is more sufficient for like securing a bond, but also, do you think that most high schoolers don't date other high schoolers?
That's not what I'm arguing. Of course, high schoolers date other high schoolers.
I think it seems pretty normal that people date within their
Yeah,
own
no,
stage of life.
most people date around their age, I would say. But this idea that you are precluded from finding somebody outside, like if you're precluded from finding somebody who's 10 years your senior, you can't find them attractive because they're not your age.
I don't think anyone's putting like a hard stop on it. I think most people or a lot of women just have the experience with older men where it is a little bit more predatory or uncomfortable.
Exactly. I don't even
It's
think
only
it's
predatory
more...
one direction. It's only predatory when men do it, right?
No,
she said
No,
women.
she didn't say that. I didn't say that, but
Yeah, you said when men
I said that most women go through that experience.
go through what experience?
Where you
Dealing
have
with
older
predatory
men
men.
That are attracted to you when you're 21?
or younger.
Okay, well, let's talk about adult relationships. So fine, 18 and up.
Sure.
Women have the experience of being adults at 18 with men who are 30 being attracted to them.
And oftentimes they turn out to be predatory.
But why? How is it predatory?
Just a lot of men are. They just are.
If it wasn't illegal, why shouldn't I date a 16-year-old? I'm only 21. Not even...
Well, we're
20
talking
years
about
older than
adults
them.
here, so
But like,
you're the one
'cause
who's
they all-
making it about underage
Yeah, you
people.
can
Okay,
make
well.
you can make the
Okay,
you can make
well.
the same argument the same exact way.
I-
We'd love. I'd be happy to get into it. So would Brian, but there are restrictions to the stream that we can't do anything about. So keep it above the 18 mark if you don't mind.
Do you think a car salesman is going to have an easier time selling to somebody that's 40 or somebody that's 18? Getting somebody to make a bad
I don't
decision.
know. I'm not an expert in
I
car
think
sales.
that they would have a lot easier time selling to somebody who's 18.
Okay.
A lot.
Why?
Well, because I think that somebody who's 18 probably doesn't have the requisite experience that a 40-year-old would have when selecting a car.
I think that's kind of my point.
Oh, that's your point. So then you're saying that 18-year-olds should not be able to buy cars?
No.
Well, wait, hang on. Why not? Why shouldn't 18-year-olds be able to buy cars?
I think they should still be able to buy cars, but I think we can also acknowledge
Wait,
that maybe-
what? I thought, whoa. But the salesman's predatory against 18-year-olds because he can more easily sell them a car.
Those two things can still be true.
Wait, what?
Those two things can still be true.
Well, okay, so those two things can still be true. I agree. So he's predatory because he's selling her a car, and she does not have the requisite experience of a 40-year-old to buy that car. So it's going to be easier for him, right?
Yes.
So then why would you let 18-year-olds buy cars?
Just because an 18-year-old.
Hang on, let her answer.
I think I'm
Why
just
would you-
trying to
why would you
acknowledge
let
that. Sorry, I'm just trying to acknowledge that you can take advantage of people that are inexperienced.
Yeah,
And
but
that's
I
what
want you
sometimes
to
people-
acknowledge that if you agree that this is something which is happening, that 18-year-olds are getting taken advantage of in this situation or in any other situation, then why do you let them do that shit?
I'm sorry, but we didn't make the rules.
Yeah, I know. I'm not talking. Hang on. I'm talking to her. Why do you let them do this stuff if you think that everybody is being predatory towards them because they're so stupid and inexperienced that they can't make good decisions like 40-year-olds? That's what I don't get.
I guess at some point you have to allow people to make their own decisions, but that
Yeah,
doesn't-
that's right. And
that
what
doesn't
point
make
do we
it
allow
okay
people to
for
make their own
someone to take-
decisions? Hang on. What point do we allow people to make their own decisions?
We allow it at 18.
That's right. We allow it at 18. So I guess at 18 they can make their own decision to date a 40-year-old man, right?
And that still doesn't negate the fact that people can be predatory towards them.
And it doesn't negate the fact that they should be allowed in all conditions to date a 40-year-old man if they
No
would
one's
like
saying they
to.
shouldn't be allowed to.
Aren't you, though? Isn't that weird that you think that they should be allowed to, even though you think that it's predatory? That's really strange. Like, I would say, my logical brain does this. It goes, wait, if there's some industry which is super predatory towards a single group, then I would try to get rid of that industry. Wouldn't you try to get rid of doesn't that make more sense?
I mean, in some cases, I'd probably would agree for certain industries, but
Yeah, but just not with used car salesmen. They're allowed to sell cars to 18-year-olds?
yeah. I mean,
Appliance
you're an adult, you
salesmen.
start
What
working
about
for yourself,
houses?
you
Can
need
18-year-olds buy
transportation.
houses? Wouldn't a real estate agent be more easily convincing towards an 18-year-old as well?
Maybe.
Yeah, I mean, maybe. I guess though, we just gotta let those 18-year-olds, at some point, we just gotta let them spread their wings and fly.
Are you going to stop advising your children when they turn 18?
No.
Are you going to stop trying to, like, are you just going to stop trying to direct them in the right direction and help them make better decisions?
No.
Okay, that's all we're talking about. We're not saying you shouldn't be able to do something.
What are you talking? What the fuck is this?
I agree with her. That's what that means.
See, and that's something that you wouldn't know because you're a lot older.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Can't date a girl if you don't know what her little, you can't date her if you don't know what the
But it could get like
little-
exhausting having to explain lingo and
Yeah,
just
crazy stuff. Okay, so hold on.
Okay, so anyway, but I just want to finish this. I'll wrap it real quick, Brian.
Okay.
I just want to make sure that I get this right. That 18-year-olds are out there being preyed on every day by hyper-predatory industries and people, but you think that they should be in order to gain experience, right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And it's not going to stop me from
That means
advising
that
them.
40-year-old men who are out there being predatory, that's good for 18-year-old women because that's how they gain experience. I appreciate that very much.
Nice
Okay.
spin.